Now let's go beyond simple colors and start adding textures to our materials in Maya. So we're going to start off with a simple object here. I'm just going to start off with a simple NURBS sphere. So I'm going to go to my shelf here and just select NURBS sphere and just create a very simple sphere. And now let's go ahead and apply material to it. I'm going to select my object, and then I'm just going to use my rendering shelf, and let's go ahead and just add a blend material to it. So when I do, the attribute editor comes up, and if we scroll over here, you'll see we have a blend material applied. Now, if I want, I can change the color of this by using the slider or by using the color picker. But if I wanted it to be more than just a solid color, I need to add a texture. And we can do that over here using this little checkerboard. And you'll notice that these little checkerboard buttons are available to almost all of these parameters in the material. We're going to focus on color right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this button and click on it. And when you do, up pops a Create Render Node menu. And this has all of the different types of textures that we can apply. Now, Create Render Node will show up for a lot of different tasks, and Maya will go ahead and highlight the things that you can do at this current moment. So right now we can apply 2D textures, 3D textures, environments, or other textures. But we have other things in here, such as lights and that sort of thing. And we're not going to be able to use those here, so Maya is just giving you all the available choices at this moment. Now, if you scroll through this, you'll notice there's a lot of different choices here. And we have things such as procedural textures, which are ones that are computer generated, such as bulge and checker and cloth. We can input bitmaps, such as targets and textures, using this file here. We can also do movies using the movie node. If you're using Photoshop, you can use PSD files and actually have layers for your textures that all fit in one file. And then we have a number of other ones here. Now I'm going to actually select a procedural texture called cloth, which is right here towards the top. And let's just go ahead and click on that. And when you do, you may not actually see this. So we want to make sure that we show textures in our viewport here, either through hardware texturing or by hitting the number 6 hotkey on your keyboard. Now when we do, you'll see this is the material or the texture that's been applied. And on the attribute editor, Maya jumps over to the attributes for creating that procedural texture. So we have a number of colors here. We have the color of the gap between the threads. We have the colors of the threads themselves. So if I wanted to, say, make this one orange and say this one yellow, I could do that very easily. And you can see how this sample here relates to what we have on this object. Now I can also change all sorts of other things. So I can change the width of the threads, so on and so forth. And I can make them wavy if I want. And there's really a lot of different options here. And this is just one of many procedural textures that you can use for Maya. And each one is a little bit different. Now once I've applied this, I may want to go back and further modify my original blend material. Now if you notice in this window here, I don't have a tab for my blend material. So what we have to do is we have to actually jump back up to that material. So we can do that using these two arrow keys here. We have one that goes into the box, and that goes to the input connection, but we want to go to the output connection, which is here. And that's this lower one with the arrow pointing out of the box. So when I click on this, it pops me back up to my original blend material. And you can see now that my color is overridden with this input connection here, which is that cloth material. Now, if I want, I can still add more textures or materials. If I wanted to, I could just dial up a color, say add more ambient color. But let's say I wanted to play with transparency. I could just make the whole object transparent, or I can use a texture for that. So let's go ahead and do this one more time. I'm going to click on this checkerboard. Again, it brings up Create Render Node. Now this time I'm going to use the checker pattern. So when I apply that checker texture, you can see how it immediately changes the look of this. And just like with the cloth, it dumps us over into the checker pattern. So if I want, I can change the color of my checkers. Now you'll notice here that white is transparent and black is opaque. So as I dial down my white, it becomes more opaque, and I can change those. So if I want, I can make it slightly transparent or fully transparent. And then if I want to go back up to my original material, again, I just go back up to my output connection, and that shows me my material. So those are some of the basics of how to apply textures. And again, you can use either bitmap or procedural textures for your models.